is and how we can change the world by using cryptocurrency. OneAcademy. Learn today, lead tomorrow.
Greetings all. Good day, good evening, good night from the Caribbean to the rest of the world. Welcome to our OneAcademy KNights Zoom call, where the K in Knights stands for the knowledge that we share. We are certainly appreciative of your presence here today. My name is Muriel Izama, and I'm from the Twin Island Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. I'm going to be your host with a reminder of why we're here. You see, our founder, who you just heard from, Dr. Ruja Ignatova, has said, we learn today to lead tomorrow. So what is OneAcademy? OneAcademy is an innovative e-learning platform covering a broad range of topics, including financial areas such as financial analysis, asset management, forex, the stock exchange, cryptocurrency, and more. So our mission is to provide our students with the guidance and educational material needed to achieve financial literacy. OneAcademy was developed by finance experts and academics. It is highly structured and easy to understand. You learn at your own pace. So our intention here is to give you a unique understanding of the facts so you can see and you can use it and of course enhance your knowledge and daily lives, as well as the product. And our core product, of course, is the OneAcademy and the benefits of our ecosystem. So I encourage you to take copious notes to assist you in your quest to become a wise and knowledgeable business leader and money manager. So our presentation today really is part 2 of what we already did last week. And what we're doing here is getting behind the vault. We are opening the vault of the bank. Yes, it is the second behind the vault. And we have with us, again, we are privileged to have with us Mr. Wayne Pear. And Wayne, as I shared with you last week, and for those of you who weren't there, he has been trained in a wide range of areas, including strategic financial management. He is a certified management accountant, a certified professional accountant. So he has a master's certificate in project management from the Project Management Institute. He has an EMBA and Executive Masters of Business Administration from the Arthur Lockjack. He has had a tremendous amount of professional experience, spending over 30 years in accounting and strategic financial management, operating at the senior level. At present, he offers strategic financial services, management services to a number of small organizations, and really he assists these organizations in really setting up their accounting and financial policies. And of course, he has had 7 years as the chief executive of the Tobago Hospitality and Tourism Institute, so that he has a wide range. And of course, he has spent several years in marketing and sales in industries ranging from insurance and other financial services. And of course, in terms of even industrial and institutional chemical organization, he sourced and set up distributorship in Barbados, in St. Lucia, and Antigua. And therefore, he is well able, because he also has 13 years at the managerial level in the banking industry, and he really um, started to make a deep dive last week into the issues, and there was such interest and there was so much information that it really had to extend over one or another session. So I want to welcome Mr. Wayne Thayer, and of course we have the rest of our panelists from the OneAcademy who at some point in time may get the opportunity to ask Wayne some questions. So Wayne, welcome. Take a deep dive, unlock that vault. Let's see what's in it.
Okay, thank you very much. Again, good night to all. It's my pleasure to be here with you again, second week. I was also happy to hear that the discussion last week sparked some debate, different questions, need for clarification, etc. And we know the problem that we have all the time is we don't have sufficient time to cover all that we would like to cover in one session. So what I would like to do tonight is to immediately open the floor to treat with those burning questions, clarification on certain topics that were discussed at the last session, and open the floor so that we can use this time more efficiently. And what we would like is to take a more solution-oriented approach, right? Because what we hear about is learning, but also looking for solutions to whatever challenges we may face in the whole financial industry, the banks and other financial institutions. So we want to jump right in and open the floor to those who will want to start to share and ask questions, if that is okay with all.
Let me then invite Ivan and Michelle, because Ivan has been heating up the chat, our chat rooms, with all having been edified further, with a lot of information. You see what I have there? 3 days of the next recession. So Ivan and Michelle can lead off, and we have Alvin Morton, we have Wayne, we have some other people, and they can also raise their hand or indicate a question in the chat box so I can call on them. So Ivan, Michelle, you can take it over from here.
Sure. Thank you so much, Mary. And thank you again, Wayne Pierre, for actually making this second installation of Behind the Vault. And it sounds like a cliffhanger. Yeah. It sounds like some dramatic story, but it is, because the banking system has affected our lives so much. And some people love the bank, some people hate the bank, some people not too sure. But what we try to do on OneAcademy is always, as you say, Wayne, come up with some sort of solutions after getting the information, because that is where really deep learning takes place. And we always try to bring on a special guest so that they could actually exploit with us and give from their side exactly what is going on. Your experience in the banking sector is really phenomenal. I think you are one of the few people who actually understand banking, right, in the real sense. And the debate went on 2 days after the previous session that we had, and we just want to continue along that line. We need, as you said, we need some things cleared up, because some burning questions arose from that situation. I'll let Michelle actually highlight 3 of those questions, and then we could get into it a little further.
No problem. Good.
So last week I was not on the panel, and you know what? I was on the panel. I just didn't make any comments because I feel I would have gotten too emotional. When I hear some things about banking, I get excited to tell the people what they should and shouldn't do. Experience, right? And yes, I know you. We know each other for years as well. And 3 of the things that was brought up, we just want to continue along line. One has to do with relationships. You said last week, with regards to building relationships with the bank. And you encourage individuals to probably develop a credit rating by either taking some small loans and, things like that. We want to just go in line as to that, if you want to expound on that. Another thing had to do with the spreads, with the banks, how they make their profits, and what is done with the spread. And Mr. Morton and many others would have had comments on this. So in that line, and the last, I'm hoping we'll have more, but these are just the three that came up, and I want to spark it up, bring it up again. It has to do with your take on the susu, and with what is going on in Trinidad and Tobago. So you can take it in the order I have given you, where with relationships, and we go on from there. So
now, let me say upfront that whatever views that I express, again, is based on my knowledge and experience, and it is no way to be construed as financial advice. If you want financial advice, you gotta pay me. Right? So I'm just making that disclaimer. Relationship. Now, I did make the statement, no credit rating is almost as bad as bad credit rating. Now, we're dealing in Trinidad and Tobago, but I think we all can relate to the United States, right? Because either we have family, we have friends, whatever. What is one of the most important numbers to the average American? Anybody want to vent here?
Yeah, your credit rating,
Your credit score is a 3-digit number called your credit score. And that is critical to the average American because it tells any finance, not only banks, but if you're looking to even rent property, they look at your credit score. And that credit score is used for quite a number of things. Now, when we talk about taking building that relationship with a small loan, we're not talking about taking a loan to go and splurge, travel, buy clothes. We're looking at taking something that you could invest, whereby you earn some return, so the interest rate you would pay to the bank would be offset to some extent by the interest that you would earn on that investment. So you are building a relationship, and it's not just to deal with the bank, but any business that you want to do, you want to have that, people want to have that confidence in you that you are known to meet your commitments, etc. What would this do for you in the future? An emergency comes up. It could be sickness, or worse yet, a child. I remember one of your children ill or whatever, and you are now forced to seek medical attention and you need financing. If you do not have that credit rating already with the bank, one of the first things they will want, if they decide to even lend or finance you, the first thing they will ask for is 100% security, which at that point in time may be the most difficult thing for you to come up with. So yes, there's a cost to that small loan, a $10,000 loan at 8%, that is $800. But what could that do for you in the future when that emergency time comes? One, once you have that credit rating and you have that relationship, you may be able to negotiate, one, a better interest rate, and most importantly, you may qualify for unsecured facility. And that is why you want to have, the saying is, it's better to have it and don't need it, or don't use it, than to need it and don't have it. So if you have that relationship, it means that any situation, it might be an opportunity. You're getting a deal, you need to get finance. You don't have the security. Because the bank now, you remember I would have mentioned the 7, if you want to go to the 7 C's of credit, and one is confidence and character. So that relationship you're building is really to give the bank the confidence in you that you will service whatever facility you are granted. And I think that being able to qualify at a better rate of interest and unsecured facility is worth the investment of paying a small interest on a small facility to develop that relationship. Is that a fair enough response?
All right. So I want to agree with you, and I would like to just give an example. I would have done it on the chat or in the group that we had the discussion, the further discussion, and I understand that clearly because years ago, when Ivan and I had to get our first home, because of developing, we just couldn't save. We had too many children at that time, even then, and we just couldn't save the down payment at that time. It was just difficult. Children kept coming. Ivan wouldn't leave me alone, and we have children. And the thing about it is, the company allowed us to take a loan, and I invested. I did exactly what you just did. I invested in unit trusts in order to get a better rate, but I got a certain rate at the bank. And it sort of offset a little bit. And I kept doing that until I built the down payment that I needed. And because of that, the company, when we approached it, said, because of your good habit, the confidence, as you said, the character, they let us pay off the loan, and the difference, we only had to pay our legal fees because they offered us full financing. So it worked in my favor. So I agree with the relationship. However, before you go on, I would like to ask any of the panel if they would want to say anything. Anyone? Alvin, anybody? Any questions, any thoughts?
Pleasant good evening to the panel. Thank you very much, Mr. Wayne Pierce, for coming on a second installment. I listened with interest to the recording of the session last week and was humbled, edified, and informed as someone with your credentials and background should do when you speak and when people listen. I can relate to some of the experience that Michelle articulated, in that the second car that I had was actually bought as an unsecured facility. And that was simply because of a relationship built with Scotiabank, I'll name the bank, at a time when my regular bankers, which was RBC, where my salary was going and so on, had refused simply because, guess what? I had no credit rating at the time. So what I had to do with the assistance of my parents was trade on their relationship with the then branch or personal banking officer, Steve Calpe, who was at Scotiabank Ellerslie Plaza at the time, to do two things. One, to get a loan to enforce a pattern of savings and to replace the bed that I was sleeping on and that had gotten into a state of disrepair. And it was through that, together with some other activities, that even though I had changed jobs, I was in a new job for about 8 months. And after the application went to another branch, because by then Scotiabank had done this sort of distributed or decentralized approach, I was granted a loan without, where the vehicle itself was the collateral, rather than me having to put in a down payment. So relationships, I think, are important, and I agree it is as much, I think, a disservice and a demerit, for lack of a better term, having no credit rating than having bad credit rating. And I do subscribe to the view, Mr. Peer, that it is better to have it and not need it, rather than need it and not have it. My forebears say it a different way. It is better to die and leave it than to live and want it. Back to you, Michelle and Ivan.
Yes, that is
Excellent.
that you said it and you summed it up so well, Alvin. I know that last week you really felt it that you wasn't on the call because of course we missed your contribution so much. Yes, but we always advise people as small as it will be, just take a loan just to develop that credit score. Now in Trinidad, it has become a lot more difficult to even get a loan without it, and people don't understand that. So again, what we are given here is really food for thought on advice that will definitely help you out in the future. That is all we are doing, right? But do you have any further questions or observations from the last caller we had, or I know it was a couple
Could I just add to what
yeah.
Could I just add to what the gentleman just said? Because he
Yeah.
made a very, very interesting point. Apart from the developing the credit rating, it forces you to develop a pattern of savings. And I think that's a critical point. Because otherwise, they will use that money. When you have money in your hand, something always pop up and you spend it. But if you have that commitment to the bank, you already start to develop a pattern of savings. And I think that's a critical statement that he just made. And you know.
All right. So if no other, we can move on to the other one that I brought up.
All right. And just one last point on that. Now, we know the bank, we know the playing field is not level with the banks. But banks have been around since eternity and they will be around long after we are all gone. But we take credit one way or the other. And who is the lender of first resort for the average poor man in this country? Anybody can tell me? Who is the lender of first resort for the average poor man in this country? You know who it is? Courts. Courts is not a furniture and appliance store. It's a finance company. And everyone runs to easy credit, no down payment, no installment till February. Everybody running and paying. And you're talking about repaying at 65%. When you could have gone to the bank and get a 8%, 7% loan for the same thing. But I mean, courts make it easy with the no down payment and no payment till. And it is hooking a lot of poor people into getting into these higher purchase arrangements, which is credit. You know, so whether you go to the bank or courts, you are borrowing, but you are not borrowing at, exorbitant interest rate as high as 65%. So one has to look at that and see if that, the bank may be a little more difficult, but it's not impossible that you start there and you try to build that so you don't have to face these type of situation. So that's the end of that topic, I hope.
Right. Great. So the other one was the susu, right? I think one of the observations was that you mentioned that the banks wasn't really cracking down on the people who started the susu, and I think one of the persons was saying yes, it was because of the banks. So we just wanted to enter into that sort of discussion with your side and his side, and see if we could come to some kind of conclusion.
All right. Well, I will start by saying that the police, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, has a very serious interest in that whole SUSU arrangement for reasons that I cannot say to the public at this point in time, but I am aware of. What I will say, if we understand how a SUSU works, you cannot get back more than you put into a SUSU. You get a hand if it's 10 persons paying $1,000, you get $1,000, that's it. You can't put in $100 and get $2,000. And if the SUSU is operating how it's supposed to operate and you are paying back out money, you cannot have 22 million in hand still. So that 22 million is not solely the depositor's money. The gentleman is a licensed money lender. There are questions as to where the money originated. That is as much as I would say on this platform, because I don't want to make no jail. All right? But there are reasons that the police has an interest. No bank in this country earning 200 million net profit have any concern whatsoever with that, Susu. None. The banking industry has no concern with $22 million, Susu. What we need to understand, the underworld in this country could almost match our national budget. That is money that is outside of the banking system. That the banks don't see, the banks don't get. That is one. Two, we may forget, it was December, 1 year ago, a pastor walked in the bank with 18 million in old currency, right? That is money outside of the banking system. If we recall also when the election campaign started, one of the statements that was made on the campaign trail by the Minister of Finance and the Attorney General, it was not just election banter, where they indicated there was over $5 billion outstanding in old $100 currency. That was an understatement. That is a fact. That was not just election talk. The central bank knows. They know how much money is in the system, and they know how much money is missing from that whole network. And I can tell you for a fact, because, and again, I can't give more information on that, but I know, and I'm not speaking previously here, there are people that are still holding millions of old $100 bills, which is outside of the banking system, right? So a 22 million will not have any impact on the banking system. Further to that, if we understand the bank's financial statements, the bank's balance sheet, deposits are liabilities to the bank, not assets. In our books, if we have a deposit, it's an asset to us, the bank is the opposite. So deposits to the bank are liabilities, and their assets are the loans that they grant. If the banks are so, and I mentioned last week, the extent of the liquidity of the banking system right now, way over liquid, and the drastic reduction in requests for credit, the banks do not need more money, they do not need more liability, because if more money come into the bank, they have absolutely nothing to do with it. They cannot lend it because there's no one seeking credit from the bank at this point in time. And they cannot just go invest, because banks, like any other financial institution, insurance, whatever, they are constrained by the type of investments they can make. They can't just take your deposits and go and buy property and sell or rent. The banks are constrained by the types of investment and the percentages. There are statutory limits to the percentages they can lend in terms of their whole deposit. What percentage of that they are not lend, sorry, but they are allowed to invest in different types of investment. This country does not offer that wide range of investment for the banks, other than government bonds and treasury bills, etc. The equity market is limited. So $22 million will not affect the bank in any way. In case we don't understand, the banks really do, especially the small man, what they call the poor man. I was speaking to a bank manager friend of mine some years ago, and he was saying the bank was trying to get rid of these nuisance accounts. They call them nuisance accounts, these people that have these small savings in the bank. Because understand the banking system, when you put your little 10,000 in the bank owes you. The bank now has to service you. You walk into the bank, someone with $1,000 in their bank account, walk into a bank, needs to get the same service as somebody who walk into the bank with $1 million in the bank. So the bank don't want to serve you. Your $1,000 in the account, as the manager put it, is a nuisance to them. because they have to put a teller there to attend to you. They probably have to put some other officer to attend to you with a little $1,000, but they cannot run you out of the bank. I mean, they try all different forms and fashion to discourage people from coming in the bank because there's an expense to them. So trust me if I say the banking system has nothing to do with the SUSU. They do not care if people choose to put their money into the SUSU, and that's their prerogative. You know what you're not hearing, and I'm sorry to say this, Ivan and Michelle, but people put money into Clico and then they lose it. People put money into Winshaw, it disappeared. They put money into the credit union, the Hindu credit union. So people have put money into legitimate business institution and end up broken. So what is the story with Asusu? And I did not hear anyone before the police intervened say that they lost their money. All right. So but the SUSU does not, and let us not, as I say, SUSU has been around forever, and every different ethnic group have something similar. They may call it by a different name. As I say, the Chinese have it, the Syrian have it. What a SUSU is a community of people coming together to pool savings, resources, to assist each other to achieve something they may not be been able to achieve on their own. And we see it in all the different groups that they do it in one form or the other. If our SUSU is the means by which we can do that, well then fine. But again, the SUSU, when you started here, you're putting in money and getting way more than you invest, then that is not how we know a SUSU to be, and that is not how a SUSU work, and eventually somebody will lose their money. So I will stop there in the SUSU for now. Any further questions?
Thank you so much for clearing that up. Moving right along, the third.
No questions on it?
I don't know if to get it.
Ivan.
All right, let's go past it. Yeah.
I don't know.
No,
if any of the panelists would like
anybody wants to ask anything?
Well, I don't know. This is me not related. Just pop in my head, and I'm going to just ask it before it pops back out. But I guess it's the whole issue about making relationship with the bank. The banks, they profile you, don't they? These financial institutions today, you know, like how police, everybody profiles people. Do they also profile you? You work in the bank, and depending on a number of things, they also determine certain factors.
Yes, they do, and that is the short answer. They will profile you, and that is a very unfortunate position, because you know they say the man who walk in the bank barefoot is the man who have all the money, right? And those who come in the shirt and tie, most time, well, not most times, some of the times are not as upfront as the bank will think. But I want us to understand, when we talk about the banks, the bank from a legal standpoint is a legal entity, but it's people make up the bank. People like you and I. And those people that sit in the bank are conditioned by the bank's hierarchy and its policies, but they are also conditioned by society. And if you come from a society that say that the only way I could succeed is at your demise, the only way I can rise, I can move up is to pull you down, climb on your head. To move forward, I have to pull you back. Those are the people now sitting in a position that they could exercise that, you know, so-called authority that they seem to think that they have over you. So if they feel you look a particular way, and this is why I say sometimes when you go with your business proposal, they measure you, because you can't go and sit with an officer earning $10,000 a month to show him you could make $50,000 a month, and he start to measure you. You know, well, who are you? You know, so yes, they do profile you, and you know, and this is why I also say that besides the bank, if you could get a banker that you can deal with, that will also go a long way.
And I'll tell you that personally, a couple of decades ago, when I was going to purchase my home, I have never really had, I've always worked consultancy, contracting, that kind of thing. I've never really had what's called a permanent job, you know, a job that they say that's a permanent job. And when I went, so these contracts will be 3 years contracts. So when I went to the bank, asking for the institution for the mortgage, there was great hesitance because I didn't have a permanent job. And so, of course, I had to say, so listen, I have X number of degrees. You feel like I get a job? If I lose this one? And I think it was that posture that they went ahead to give me the mortgage. I guess in these times it might be able to try that, but that's why I'm thinking they profile you because I simply gave them that.
But as I mentioned last week, you may have been a consultant doing your own business, and you could have given a job letter to a member of staff that you hire, and they would have gotten the money easier than you. And it forces you to do things sometimes that, you know, may not be considered the best. But I remember a situation where I was again on my own working for myself, and I applied for a small loan for the business, and again, as a self-employed person, you know, they want all these financials and a whole other question. And I had a partner with a business. I went to him and I got a job letter, and I went back to the bank and get the same amount of money borrowed with a job letter. I never worked that day in my life. I mean, it's unfortunate you have to do that, but that's what they understand: a job letter and a pay slip. You know, when you come to them as a business person, and more so if you're consulting, where they're not seeing equipment and machinery and vehicles to hold because they want to hold something. Yes, and you have to be careful in telling them what your true earning potential is. As I say, you have to show the bare necessity to pay the loan and to live legally. Because anything more than that, they get more suspicious, they get more, you know, I shouldn't even say suspicious, they just don't want to lend you the money because they want to keep you in a certain class, in a certain position. So, you know, as I say, you can still get away with it, yes, because there are more and more people now out of jobs and doing their own businesses, and the banks cannot shy away from that. They have to treat with it because that's the new norm, as everybody's saying, is the new norm. People are not getting back jobs in certain places, you know, that's the end of that. So you have to find ways and means to earn a living, and you will need financing to assist and move forward.
Well, Wayne, I would like to say you mentioned that they profile some people because they look at us with the regular 5,000, 3,000 as nuisance. So they profile us already. In that we become the that's why we have so much fees and we have to pay so much things. The regular person.
Yeah.
So profiling is done, no matter what. Okay.
Yeah. So
Yes.
the third question or observation.
Raise their hand.
Someone.
I saw someone raise their hand on the.
Yeah.
Yeah, Melinda.
Yeah, somebody had their hand raised. That's a Melinda. So we will I've asked her to let me know her question. So we'll continue until we determine that.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah.
So about the spreads, Wayne, that you mentioned, I think you had mentioned that the spreads is really where the bank makes a lot of its profits. So someone was asking, well, I mean, I don't think the person listened properly to the whole question, the whole observation that you were given. But they say, where does the money goes from the spread?
All right. Let me put it in an example form. You purchase a case of water for $20, right? You sell that case of water for $60. Means you have made a gross profit of $40. From that $40, you may need to pay. You had a young gentleman on the side of the road selling, so you need to pay him $20. So you now have a net profit of $20. That net profit of $20 is your money to do whatever you want to do with it. Right? The bank is no different. The bank buy money and sell money. So they buy money from the public at 0.6%. They sell that money at 7-8%. The gross profit is the difference. And in banking terms, that is what is called the margin. The bank's margin is its gross profit. Out of that gross profit, the bank would pay its overheads, its wages, its salaries, rent, utilities, etc. And then it will be left with a net profit. That net profit is attributed to the shareholders, nothing else. That money belongs to the shareholders of the bank. That is the profit the bank make, and the banks now have to allocate by through dividends or whatever. But that money is at the bank disposal to do what they want once they have satisfied the shareholders' need. So that money doesn't go back into, if the bank want to reinvest part of that money for expansion and so. Remember, banks don't invest in buildings, and the only buildings the bank owns is what they operate in, because that is by statutory, the bank can't get into that kind of investment. So that net profit, which is the net spread, is attributed to shareholders and shareholders only, not depositors, not anybody else. It is their money. They have made their profit to do whatever they see fit with that profit. And that is it, as basic as I can put it.
Wow. So that money doesn't go as part of the interest earned at all to any one of the customers. That's what you're saying.
No, remember the interest, the bank, remember, as I say, once the bank lend the money, the bank will earn whatever rate.
Yeah.
And whatever interest is attributed to the depositors, that is part of the overhead expense. So it is what is left after they have paid out, as I say, all their overheads, their wages, and whatever funds are due interest payments to depositors, whatever is left of that is attributed to the shareholders.
All right, great.
Right, and of course, you know that what they, again, if we are paying out interest at 0.6%, basically the whole spread is yours, because you're lending that money at 7-8%, and all you're paying back is 0.6, 0.7% maximum. So this is why, as bad as the economy may seem or look at any time, the bank's profit, net profit, is not decreasing. Check the records, the bank's profit are not going down. Somebody raised the question about negative interest rates. We are already enjoying negative interest rates, because if the rate of inflation is 0.7% and the bank giving you 0.6, that is negative interest. The inflation rate on food is 4.4%. You're getting 0.7, 0.6%. That is negative interest, because your dollar is depreciating daily. And that is just the percentage. We're not adding onto that yet the charges. Because by the time they don't take out charges, and so that, well, worse yet, your money, well, I wouldn't say it's better under the mattress, but at least it will maintain its value. In the bank, it is depreciating every day. Every day.
Huh. Wow.
Wow. Comments, anyone?
Yeah. Good night. Good night. Good night.
Yeah, good night, Cliff.
Good night.
Hi, good night. Night, Wayne. Good night, panelists. Wayne, just a little question. You talk about the buildings which the bank owns. Which funds they would use to buy those buildings? And especially when you see, for instance, a Republic Bank having holdings in other Caribbean interests. All right. Wouldn't it be the same depositors' money that they would have used? And
No. again, let me just say, they cannot, there are statutory restrictions on what banks could invest money in, what insurance companies could invest depositors' money in. No, as I said, if the net profit is attributed to the shareholders, remember the bank does not pay out 100% dividend. So
Correct.
part of that net profit is what is used for further development to increase their revenue, again attributed to shareholders. So the bank may invest in a foreign bank. I mean, Republic Bank, if we don't know, have 42 branches in Ghana. Republic Bank, 42 branches in Ghana, right? But they use, remember, we're talking about billions of dollars, and the bank is making this massive spread. By the time they pay, they ain't paying salaries. No, I mean, the executive management salaries might be covered, might be more than all the staff in the bank, but that's beside the point. But they have this net profit. If we're talking about 200 billion in a year, net profit, how much dividend does the bank pay? Because who are the shareholders? The shareholders are other banks, the government, other institutional organizations and so. And the banks use that money for reinvestment to again increase, because it's about increasing wealth for the shareholders, right? So they invest overseas, they invest in different, but remember that net profit, there's no limitation on what they could invest in with that money.
No,
So,
I don't know. What I'm talking about is that we're talking about the purchase of fixed assets by the bank, which is namely, you say, the building in which they occupy, right? No, that what I am asking you, where would the bank get its funds from to purchase its own building?
from the profits that they make.
All right, so the profits would be generated as a result of the spread which they use.
Yeah.
Right. So I have a challenge in that I am saying, when a borrower comes to the bank, they tell the borrower as one of its commandments that you cannot use short-term capital to invest it over a long-term period. But the bank breaks that same cardinal rule in that the same depositors' money that they hold and the spread which they use is what they use to invest in long-term investments, such as, well, fixed assets. So my take is that the very thing that they propagate to the borrowers is the same rule that they break. You understand?
Not really. Again, let me explain it a little more.
Mm-hmm.
You put your $1,000 in the bank, right?
Mm-hmm.
The bank, let me say the bank generous, so they pay you 10%. So the bank now has a debt to you of $1,100, $1,100, right?
Right.
But they lend that money and they make $3,000. They're no longer using your money because they have allocated your 1,000 plus your interest. The profit that they are making now is what they use to make these investments. So it is not, it does not fall into the thing that they are taking short-term money from persons, because they already allocated that money there. They are using their profits to make these investments. So they could invest long, short, medium, because that is their money. Now, we have already covered the depositors' money and their interest. Because remember, all we're paying back is 0.7%, but we have 8%. So we can take that 8% and do whatever we like with it, because that is no longer the depositors' money. That is now the bank's money. That is their profit. As I said just now, if you are selling as a business and you're selling and you make that profit, you can do anything with that profit that you want to. So they use that. So that, because they cannot use depositors' money, and that is by statute. That is not just a bank policy. They cannot use depositor money in any speculative investment to start with, right? The bank is not in the business of real estate. The bank because the banks cannot get into that business. So a property that the bank buy is a property that the bank occupy, and they could buy that property from their own profit,
All right, just okay.
not the
So
depositor's money.
okay, so what you're saying is that what they can use to get into other kinds of investment is the profit that would have been generated from loans to other people, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So then, is it then that whatever that they are barred from entering by statute? So if you're saying that they can't get into real estate, all right, because using depositors' interest, they can in turn, however,
No,
get into
not depositor's interest, no, depositor's
depositors'
money.
money, depositors'
Yeah,
capital,
right.
depositors'
Yeah,
capital.
yeah.
But is it now that they can then get into real estate once they have sufficient profit, right, gathered through other operations? Can they now get into real estate? So
Well,
they
they can
have
get.
not. So they have not used the. They are showing where they have not used the depositors' capital on paper, but they are able to get into other investments which they could not ordinarily do once they have the profit margin to show that it can be gotten into. So is that not a loophole or getting around that?
Well,
So I ask the question.
it's not
I
a
ask the
loop.
question.
Yeah.
All right, I ask the question. You look at, let me say, a JP Morgan Chase. Now I know it's not our local climate, but JP Morgan Chase, of course, one of the largest investment banks in the world, they into um, transporting containers over the seas, right? They have ships in their company's name. No, it's the same thing as say they show that it is not their depositors' capital that they use to get into that, but rather the interest. So that's what I'm saying. Is it not a loophole that you're exploiting? You don't think so?
I wouldn't call it a loophole because that is your money to do whatever you choose to do with it. You know, there's no legal barrier to you using that money for any purpose because you have already, remember you would have left certain reserves at the central bank for depositors' money. You would have,
right.
You know, you would have taken care of your depositors because you have their money. It's a liability. Remember, it's a liability on your books, you know. That is a liability you have to repay. And you have to make proper allowances because if there's a run on the bank, you have to find the depositors' money, right? But you're using that profit to do because the only persons could make a claim to what the bank do or not do with that profit is the shareholders, you know. And most times the shareholders don't. They just allow the bank to do what they want with the money until the bank give them a little dividend and are happy and I move on. But let me just address something quickly. It may or may not be on the same topic. Now, there was a word bandied about 15, 20 years ago. I don't know if people will be familiar, called derivatives. I don't know if that word may be familiar with most of you.
Yep.
Derivatives have disappeared out of the financial vocabulary since 2008. And I will tell you why. Derivatives, a bank takes a mortgage on a property for $1 million. 1 million. The property value $1 million, the bank takes a mortgage for $1 million. The bank then develop paper securities to the tune of $10 million, where the underlying asset is only 1 million. And they trade this paper on the stock market to other financial institutions and persons. And that's where the term derivatives came from, because the paper is derived from an asset, but the asset is way, way below the value of the paper created that they're trading. That in itself, and the banks and financiers were doing that, and that in itself is a Ponzi scheme. And this is why in 2008 the bubble burst. And this is why institutions like Fannie Mae and all these people disappear off the face of the earth, and the Lehman Brothers and all these people, because they were taking. So in other words, if you can take $1 million mortgage and create paper to 10 million, what do you think the bank will do? They will start creating mortgages left, right, and center. So what they do, they started taking mortgages, giving people mortgages who couldn't qualify for the mortgages. But they were building a portfolio of mortgages that they could have then sell 10 times that value on the market. And this is why when the bubble burst, people, they had to foreclose on people because the persons who qualified and got the mortgages didn't qualify for it in the first place. So the banks were using, and this is not Trinidad, no, this is international, they were using the public, granting them mortgages so that they could take that mortgage and multiply it by 10 and sell paper and make money off it. And people were trading and buying these things. Since 2008, I have not heard that word, and I hope it never comes back.
Nice, easy explanation, Wayne.
Yeah, he fell off. He fell off. He'll be back. That's now. But he's right. I haven't heard that that word derivatives for quite some time. Understanding, and I think he gave that good explanation of why, right? But as we know, that is where that toxic asset came from, that caused that whole run on Lehman Brothers as ground zero, and then spread across the world because they were just selling these paper to other banks, and they had nothing to really cover it. So again, that is something that we here at OneAcademy really, I think, this year is further understanding of what we may have already seen or know on what is taking place in the banks. Until he comes back.
I see Mr. Kajo made a statement, and I don't know if he's there to ask a question when Mr. Pierre comes back, because he was saying that the current derivatives market is about $674 trillion, which is almost a quadrillion dollars. And he seems to be able to verify that. So I don't know if Mr. Kojo is in a position to ask a question, make a comment. At this point in time, he could raise his hand so we could promote him to panelists and allow.
Yeah, I promoted him to panelists. So, Mr. Kojo, do you want to expand on your statement? You can feel free to open your mic.
Also, while he was working his mic, I saw that Michael Redhead also made a comment. So we seem to have persons apart from the OneAcademy gurus want to share some of the enlighten us with some of their knowledge.
Yeah, of course, Michael Redhead is that person who is really a UTC agent. So he has some experience in this sort of thing. And he said shareholders own the bank and decide on expansion, etc. Customers are not generally owners. However, you can tomorrow become a shareholder in these banks and enjoy just what you seem to dislike.
So some
Business is designed to make a profit. All right. So what he is saying is literally flipping his script, and you understanding what it is to be a shareholder, you wouldn't be so, I think, so sad to really get your hands on some money and some profit. So I think that's what he's saying, and so true. All right. I saw that Emmanuel was opening his mic.
Yes, good night, everyone. Yes. Muriel, Ivan, Michelle, Alvin, and the others on the call. You know, this discussion to me, notwithstanding the practical overviews, analysis, prudence as far as banking, developing a relationship with the banker, notwithstanding all of that, this discussion to me, and that's giving you my perspective, no offense to anybody, it's a little depressing. You know, in the light of the fact that the banks, as Mr. Pierre said last week, and is articulating in essence now, they're all about big profits, and to me in a kind of exproportionate manner. And to me, it is not fair, it is not just, It is exploitation as far as I am concerned to the highest level. It is degrading to me, to the society, because while, as Muriel mentioned, they profile you, and certain people will get loans when they go. Some of it, to be frank, on the grounds of ethnicity and so on. And the poor man who is struggling, trying to make ends meet or trying to develop a business, has his business ideas stolen from him, or is not granted the necessary funds for growing and developing his business. And while Mr. Pierre made a reference to the susu money, or even the $1,000 that the depositor puts into the bank, as if it's not a big thing of their concern, because you see it's a liability to the bank, right? And their investments and so on is what makes them inherit the billions and trillions of dollars. Yet they will not be able to amalgamate money. I mean, every cent will count. They are big investors, they are big business people who put money in the banks and so on. But also, those small money are for them to make their investment and to make their big profits, and then for them to get into other assets and so on. So it is a small man that is contributing to the billions and trillions that they make in profit annually. And what is that small man getting? So to me, the whole thing is not equitable. To me, the whole thing is rape upon that, the interests and the fees that are charged. To me, something seriously, Ivan, something is seriously wrong with it and has been wrong for years. We still have the issue of quantitative easing, which is in effect very similar to the derivatives that he made reference to. And that means the circle of that kind of banking scenario will continue, and you will always have the poor getting poorer and poorer and poorer. I believe there must be an alternative outside of developing a relationship with the bank or the banker, that we must be educated not just from school to save money in the bank, but we must develop, or there should be some kind of a narrative about an alternative system. And I'm not just talking about crypto, because crypto is to some extent, and I believe the same banks will take over crypto. That's my personal belief. But so I'm not necessarily talking about cryptocurrency generally. I'm saying some kind of alternative system must be developed with an education where we are taught how really to generate wealth and how to have money-wise investment and prudent management of our monies, acquiring more assets and so on. To me, way off from the banks itself. The banks to me is about control, they're about domination, they're about enslavement. And based upon my research, the most wickedest, and I'm being very deliberate here, the most wickedest criminal enslaving activities. If you go through the banks and when the money is in the banks, I have a book called The Committee of 300. And there are pages upon pages upon pages of the names of banks. And almost all the money passing through them banks and so on, either tainted with drugs or is involved in money laundering. And of course, he talked about the money that is in the underground, the economy, that can parallel the present economic system that the central bank should know of. And yet you have omissions of billions of dollars. We ain't hearing anything about that. So I am wary. I am wary. God is looking on, and God, who is the ultimate judge of everything, these men who are doing the evil with money, they will have to answer to God for poor people that are suffering all over the world. That's my contribution. Thank you.
Thanks, Noel. You said a lot. I think Wayne Pierre came back.
Yeah. My computer screen just went blank, so I am on my phone right now.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, so coming out from that, we are already past the top of the hour. So again, we can't do something like this in just 1 hour or so. I ask the audience and also the panelists if you all don't mind that we go a little over, just to get a little more information and really provide some food for our audience. One of the things that Kesby's had noticed, Wayne, was when you spoke
Yeah.
about internal borrowing of the banks. He wanted a little more explanation on that, in the sense that, of course, the banks borrowed themselves from each other at very minimal cost, right? So he wanted for you to go over that again as pertaining to they borrowing from each other as compared to us borrowing from them.
Okay. Everybody hear me, right? Yeah, because I'm on my phone now.
Yes, we hear you.
Bank borrowing from each other is basically what they call overnight borrowing. Now, I don't know if you, every day the banks would have two, looking at their operation day to day, week to week, month to month, will have an idea of how much money they will need on a daily basis to run their operations. And they will request funds from the central bank, etc., to run their operations for the day. If for some reason there are excessive requests for withdrawals from the bank doesn't run back to central bank and say we need an extra 10 million or whatever the case may be. They can actually borrow that money from another bank to finance their operations for the day. And that 0.5% is what they call an overnight rate for the use of that funds. So it's not like the bank borrow money from another bank and we have 3 years to pay it back. Bank borrowing from another bank is usually overnight borrowing to meet whatever shortfall a bank may experience in any particular day to fulfill their obligations to their depositors.
Right, okay, that's simple enough. One of the other things that I really wanted us to get into was that whole thing about mortgages, because we have a couple people here who have had mortgages, and they just wanted to get some information.
I think you have 2 devices close by, Wayne.
Yeah.
His computer probably come back up.
Probably, yeah, the computer probably came back up.
Yeah. So the whole question of mortgages, of course, because that plays a part in many of the normal person's lives, people who would purchase homes, and sometimes it goes afoul, and people, they run all over the place trying to get help or what is the best solution to really address that situation. This is a main topic that I really wanted to get into, because I know with that information that Wayne has, we would really help a lot of people. So I don't know if Wayne, could you unmute your mic again and let's see if we are getting that feedback.
Wayne, are you able to unmute your mic to answer Ivan's question? Maybe his device fell off again.
Probably again. Everything
Fell
fell off.
Yeah.
So I see Mr. Kojo had his mic unmuted. Mr. Kojo, did you want to ask a question or did you want to make a statement?
A pleasant good evening to all. Basically, just to add to the derivatives. And I suspect that we've not been hearing about derivatives because they are actually the elephant in the room. You're talking about almost $1 quadrillion in derivatives contracts that exist as we speak. And